base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Monday. Get to react to lots of stuff. An Atlanta United win, a Miles Robinson injury, results around the league, all kinds of things to get into today, and we will. We'll get into some thoughts from Saturday first. Salty Takeaway has been posted, and Jarrett and John gave you their thoughts afterwards. Mike and I gave you thoughts on the full-time report, which is posted as well. I thought it was a good performance. I thought it was honestly a very similar kind of performance and setup and tactical setup and philosophical setup and all of the things as we've seen in recent matches for about a month now. The difference is the goals are hitting the back of the net. And I thought the team came out really quick early on. It came out with intensity early, which was great. Love the way that Atlanta United was knocking the ball around quickly early, multiple times before the first goal. First goal's great. You get the second goal because of counter pressure and Franco Ibarra, who I thought was outstanding in this match as well. And Ronaldo Cisneros has a big day for himself. Fastest hat trick from the start of a match in Atlanta United history. Not quite the fastest in pure time. Joseph Martinez got just I think a minute faster in pure time between three goals. But third player to have a hat trick in Atlanta United history, and it was definitely needed. They gave up a goal on a recycled set piece, not clearing it, not getting reset quick enough. Shaqiri picks out a 4, but the response to that was outstanding. And Lennon gets one at the end to cap it off. One of the big headlines coming out of it is the injury to Miles Robinson, though. There are reports that are at this point unsubstantiated. Roger Gonzalez of CBS Sports is saying that Miles Robinson's going to have surgery today, saying that it is a ruptured Achilles. We've talked about Roger Gonzalez's tweets from time to time. They're not always entirely correct. Sometimes he gets out in front of himself. But if you go back and look at what happened in the injury, and the same thing going through my head is when, we watched this with Brad Gazan. And like I mentioned before, this was very similar to John Berner of Memphis 901 last year against Atlanta United 2, where you see the player step forward and then look backwards like what just happened. And there's some, I think, faulty things going around that he was looking at the turf. Turf didn't hold him up in this situation. And if you go back and you look at Achilles injuries, and we don't know for sure that's what this is, but you have to kind of point in that direction. When you look at Achilles injuries, oftentimes you see the person who has the Achilles tear or rupture, hopefully in this case it's a partial, you see them look back like, what just hit me? Go back and watch David Beckham's where there's nobody around him in Milan, and he looks back like, what just happened? People, when their Achilles ruptures, talk about thinking they got shot, thinking they got hit, thinking somebody kicked them. When Miles looks back, that's what he's looking at, I think, and he points down at his foot/Achilles. It's unbelievably, incredibly bad luck. Achilles injuries, from all the studies that are out there, are not caused more on turf than on grass. For example, Dylan Castaneda's Achilles this year, because we've got multiple Achilles injuries in different places. His was on grass at the training ground. Did get that confirmed. Brad's was on the turf. Miles's is on the turf here. A lot of people jump into conclusions, which I get. I mean, I get the understanding and trying to figure out a reason to explain it. Gonzalo Pineda was asked about the training staff again after the game. He's mentioned this, or he hasn't mentioned it. He's been asked about this many times, and he's talked about how they look at situations, they look at process, they reevaluate, and they've done that all year long, and they're happy with where they are with it. It's not causing Achilles injuries or the ACL to Osvaldo Alonso, because that can't even get lumped in because it's a contact situation. So I get the frustration. I get the wanting to find something to blame because it's what we do. But in this case, it's just incredibly awful for Miles Robinson. And that's the number one thing. I think what you got out of this from the Atlanta United perspective on the team side is, one, they have a lot of love for Miles Robinson, and the conversation at halftime, what's been talked about afterwards was, they wanted to get this done for him. They wanted to honor the work that he puts in. They wanted to honor him and finish this out. They looked shaky for a while after the injury, and it's to be expected. When you see this happen over and over again, you're like, man, what do I have to do to avoid this? And you're a little bit of a mess for a while. Alex DeJohn came in and was a big part of calming things down. I was really happy we were able to get him on the full-time report to talk about coming in and what he brought to the table. I thought he brought steadiness. I thought he blended in really well. I thought he brought some aggressiveness. It was really good to see Alex get that opportunity and deliver when called upon. And I thought other guys stepped up. Honestly, everybody stepped up. After the injury, I thought you saw everybody, after they were shaky, after they had to figure it out, after they had to regroup, after they had to get their heads right. I thought you saw everybody fight in this game. You saw everybody winning tackles, everybody jumping into passing lanes, everybody getting forward, looking to play the Atlanta United way, and they get the win to show for it. Now, I mean, we're hopeful about this being a less serious Achilles injury. I know we're crossing our fingers and we're looking for anything we can, but that's where you're at right now with Miles, because he's in a World Cup year. And it's a big World Cup for not just him, but for the U.S. men's national team. And Miles, would be starting in that. So if, and we talked about Achilles timelines with Brad Kazan, over 30, it's tougher. It's generally longer. Under 30, it can be shorter. And the NBA, as we talked about at that time, this is where you're seeing more Achilles injuries than other sports, and maybe more conversation around it. It's different movements that are going to affect the Achilles a little bit more, although not every Achilles injury has anything to do with jumping like you would think in basketball. You're seeing some guys come back in 4 to 6 months. You're seeing that happen now. The recovery, the surgery, the repair, all of those things have dramatically improved over time. Does Miles get into that window? No way to know. No way to know. Again, all we can hope for is that it is relatively minor, relatively easy to deal with from a surgical perspective, and he can get back out as fast as possible. Is there a scenario where he is cleared for the World Cup? Yeah, there is. There is a scenario for that. It's not going to be easy. And then Greg Berhalter's got some tough decisions to make, because if he's cleared, how early is he cleared, and does he get any games before that? That's far less likely. And that's the hard part of all this, because you feel for somebody like Miles, who has really worked his way up the ladder with the national team and would be starting in game 1 of the World Cup if he's healthy. And we don't know if that's going to happen now. And it doesn't look great for that to happen. So, I mean, the important things out of Saturday, and you have to look at it as two different things, because you can't, in my opinion, overshadow the work on the field and the result from the team, because it was great and it was outstanding and it was hard work across the board. And there were so many good performances in it. And it's what everybody's been asking for. And you get the goals from Cisneros, and you get the chances created, and you get all that. You can't overshadow it. You have to talk about that, and you have to celebrate that. But you also have to look at the other side, where, a young player who has made it to the limelight based off his work here in Atlanta and in getting the opportunity with the national team, and would be a huge part of Atlanta United season and a huge part of the U.S. men's national team in the World Cup. That's at risk now due to an injury, a non-contact injury, and one that it was hard on the call. Not going to lie. It was hard on the call when that happened, and you see the replay, because when it happened, I thought maybe he got kicked, because I couldn't see exactly what happened. I thought, again, some of the reaction, I thought maybe he got kicked, maybe he got hit, maybe he got rolled up a little bit. And then when you see the replay, and when he takes the step, he brings that foot off the ground really fast, and there wasn't contact. You know where it's headed, or at least you think you know where it's headed. And it's just the worst thing imaginable after seeing the worst thing imaginable with Brad happen in front of us. So it was really tough for Mike and I think, to get our heads around it. And for I'm sure it was the same for Kevin and Mo and Jillian, because we've been through this already this season. And to see it again to somebody that's been here, two guys who have been here from day one. And I know Brad came in midseason in 2017, but he was acquired before the season. They've been here from the beginning. It's rough, but it can't overshadow the great performance either. And that's the challenges of professional sports. That's the challenges of running a team, and it's the challenge that Gonzalo Pineda has now. And it's a credit to having somebody like Alex who can come in and be that steady hand. George Campbell getting closer to being back. He's going to be needed. Going to have to figure out if you need short-term call-ups. Noah Cobb might be back with the first team. You could see Bryce Washington. You could see Nelson Orji, all Atlanta United 2 players. Might have to rotate those call-ups for extra depth on the bench. Lots of different possibilities in how you deal with this. But ultimately, you do have to, because the season doesn't stop. You can't put it on pause. You can't put it on hold. And somebody like Miles, who stepped up and took the captain's armband at a time where it's probably a little uncomfortable for him to do that, and it's outside of his comfort zone of, I think, where he is right now as a player and in the locker room. He took it, and he did it, and he took on that responsibility. He doesn't want anything to wreck this season either because of the work they've put in. So, again, you kind of have to do this for him, to honor him. You have to honor Brad. You have to honor Dylan, all the work he's put in the training ground. You have to keep going. And it's tough, and there's going to be shaky moments, but that's what happens in these situations, because these guys do kind of become family. And man, when you're seeing family members go down like this, it's tough. It's really hard. And it's a credit to the mental strength of this team to deal with that, take it on, and go get a big win that they much needed on Saturday. So that's where things stand right now. Again, Roger Gonzalez has tweeted that out this morning about a surgery that has not been confirmed anywhere else as of yet. So that's where things stand with Miles. That's a little more of my thoughts of the game. Jarrett, where do you want to go from here?
I mean, we can wrap up thoughts and get to John as well on thoughts, general kind of overarching thoughts of the game. Because it was. I said it the Saturday night. Like, here's the thing, man. Like, you get injuries like this, they suck. The teams you're playing, like Chicago, those guys are going to feel bad for Miles. They are in a fraternity of players. Some of them probably know him. They'll talk after games. They'll goof around, that sort of thing. They're coworkers. But in the heat of that moment for 90 minutes, Chicago didn't give a damn if you lost your center back. They were out there for blood.
Nope.
And no one's going to feel sorry for you on the field, so you can't feel sorry for yourself. And I thought they did a great job at rebounding. You talk about reading the game. That's what I was really impressed with DeJohn. DeJohn reads the game really well. A number of times where Chicago would try and especially get out the right side and try and get through the midfield into the attack and try and play it behind Atlanta's lines. And DeJohn was reading it, stepping in front, cutting out passes, and just not always just cutting it out and then playing it straight into a counterattack, but just kind of settling things down, especially in the second half. I thought keeping it subdued, not letting the game pace pick up beyond what you're comfortable with, not letting Chicago try and speed things up. I thought he did a great job of that, and that's why you have a guy like him in the system. Do you expect him to start 20 games? No. But he's a veteran. He's a veteran who knows the league. He understands his role. He understands how to deal with MLS. He understands the ups and downs of it, and he understands how to read the game. And when you need him, he's able to step in and give you something. I did think it was funny though when when people were talking about him coming off because his jersey had blood on it. Not sure if it was his blood or someone else's. And they were nervous about it. Like, oh, is he okay? Y'all, he played with a cracked elbow last year. I don't think a little blood's going to bother him at this point.
Yeah, you finish a game with a broken elbow. If you get a little busted open, that's nothing to you.
Yeah, but he was very impressive, and the way they read the game was great. You talked about
a couple things on Alex. I want to figure that. So, one, he turns 31 this week. Gonzalo talked about him last year when he didn't play, and talked about how important he was and how important he was on the training ground. And just having him was critical. And that's why he's back. And that's why he's the one who gets this call. And he goes 60 of 63 coming off the bench and passing, 95%. He defensively had 4 defensive actions in 73 minutes. That's very, very good. 2 interceptions. He did everything you need him to do. And I think, one thing you saw from him on set piece defending after he came in, very aggressive. Very aggressive. Came in, won a couple of headers in those moments.
Damn near scored off of that piece, too.
Nearly scored. Maybe should have. Sure, he's going to want that one back. 2 of 2 on the aerial duels, or 2 of 4 on the aerial duels on the night, so 50%. But he was the one who was most involved in them. Great performance from him. And I don't think it's an easy answer as to, okay, George is not 100% yet. You do have Santiago Sosa who can play in the back as well. You can reshuffle the tactical setup a little bit to go 3 center backs if you want extra protection, but I don't know if that's a guarantee. It would not surprise me if your starting center back duo for a minute could be Alex and Alan Franco. George is going to come back and want to earn that spot and earn that time back, of course, because he's had it for the year. But after the performance Alex just had, it's not going to be easy to sit him down.
No, it's not. It's going to be a battle because, you get Campbell coming back in there. You get, if you start wanting to use call-ups, Noah Cobb has done everything right to, if things get a little tight with schedule compression, let's say you start making a deeper run to the U.S. Open Cup before July and you got to compress things a bit. Noah Cobb has done everything right to be in that conversation of guys who get opportunities with depth. It's going to be
Open Cup, Jarrett, because you've got that coming up on Wednesday, and Nashville is the opponent. Nashville lost Randall Leal yesterday in the match. Looked like an ankle sprain. He's probably not going to play on Wednesday if it is an ankle sprain. Came out at halftime. It's a weird one because I don't know how Nashville takes it, because remember, Nashville doesn't have a second team. So they got a bunch of guys on that roster who haven't played much this year. Is this the opportunity that they give them to play? Do they go for it? When you look at the other side, Gonzalo Pineda, I think wants to go for it, no question, but is he going to be in a position to fully go for it with the injuries and with another home game on the weekend? So if you said in the Open Cup, it is Noah Cobb and Rocco Rios Novo in goal, and that's going to be at least one place you start. Maybe Ronald Hernandez gets the start as well. I'm not surprised, and I would caution too much reading into it just because of the nature of the Open Cup and rotating the squad and getting guys minutes and dealing with all of this all at once. So I don't think it means more than that. We'll see more next weekend. But yeah, I could see some rotation for the Open Cup.
Yeah, it was overall, you put the ball in, you did the thing where you put the ball in the back of the net, and I don't mean to make it sound silly, but that's kind of what you were missing, and it had to feel like
you were missing. It's exactly what you were missing. Yeah,
I don't mean to try and oversimplify it and make it a silly thing, but
no, but it is like
I know
you can't run from it. Because I was asked many times after the game, like, what they do different? What they do different? Nothing. Like they didn't do anything.
Space, and
they did that, but they've been doing that. They did nothing different. Like that's the thing is, what do they do different?
They scored.
They scored. It's honestly that simple sometimes.
I would. Okay, so we're gonna do the. I'm gonna kind of bring this to like another sport, for instance, for a second, where like if you've ever swung a baseball bat, if you ever hit a ball in a sweet spot and you feel no resistance to it and it just feels clean and perfect, or with soccer, when you strike it perfectly, you catch it put the laces through the ball and it's perfect, like the goal from last Friday night that you covered, Jason, where it went off his foot, you knew it was clean. That first goal had to feel so good, not just for Gonzalo Pineda, but for the whole team, of not just that you scored, but you were able to put together, I think it was counted at like 20 passes in like 11 seconds or 18 passes in 11 seconds. But you were able to put together a really beautifully built goal and paid it off with a finish that's off the underside of the crossbar and in. It gets a little bit of deflection, and that's fine. Who cares? But the fact that you were able to put together that goal after just beating your head against a wall, um, it had to feel so good. It had to be for me that equivalent of like putting your foot through a ball perfectly or catching a ball off a bat on the sweet spot. Just it had to be so therapeutic for that first goal to go in the way it did.
Yeah, it's a release. And this is what's crazy about it is then you give one up and then you have the injury.
Yeah.
And they still got back on track. That's the most impressive element of it is you have that release, then you give up a goal and you could easily be like, oh, here we go again. Then you have the injury and you're definitely like, oh, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept going and they get a goal, a hard-working goal, the second one. It's off of a big tackle from Ibarra, who wins it back in the midfield and jump starts it. And then the third one, where it's an incredibly precise ball from Thiago Almada, and Cisneros beats the goalkeeper on the dribble and puts it home, and you're cruising at that point. But to have that after two things that could have been a gut punch, really, really impressive to bounce back from it. What else, John, have we not jumped into yet that you want to start with?
Oh, I mean, there were two things, and one goes to all of the different names that you've been mentioning this morning that you and Jared have been discussing here. You know, whether it's guys from Atlanta United too that would be stepping up, the depth that has been assembled in the discussion about Alex DeJohn, just the idea that a roster like this was assembled for this depth for these different reasons, and it just so happens that you're using the depth because of injuries, and you're seeing the faith that you've invested in these guys come true on the field. I mean, you know, you look at a guy like Alex DeJohn, and you can go back to Mexico and see what he means to this team, having to go against Celaya and go a full 90 minutes when he's asked.
I don't know how much that means, but
no, but I think it's to me, it's, you know, when a guy is asked to do something and he's not listed as a starter, starting 11 guy, you ask him to come in. He's going to do his thing. He's going to continue to prove his worth to you. That was just the first instance of it, for me, this season when you're engaging, when you're talking about a guy like
either Alex, you stay out there, or we're playing short because we got nobody else because we got a false positive for, well, we didn't know it was false positive at that time, but couldn't play Alan Franco. So somebody had to eat up 30 more minutes. Yeah. Have at it, Alex.
Yeah, it's all yours. But, to see the investment in an Alex DeJohn and you have it come true in a moment in a match like we saw yesterday. And then the other one that stands out for me, just once again getting Luis Araujo back, and you get to see how much of a catalyst he is. And I mean, legitimately, the three instances in the first 10 minutes where you're looking at Araujo getting involved in the first goal with Cisneros, and why the defender went to defend Luis's right foot, I have no idea, but okay. Then in the I know, but he, as an inverted winger, he likes to work with his left, and then he opens that space there, and you're looking at Cisneros.
But when you're two-footed, you can't sell out, and Luis can go with the right. He can shoot with the right. So he is heavily left-footed. He's definitely going to favor his left, but that's the quality of somebody like Luis, that you can still throw that fake. And also lefties can do that a lot easier than righties when they're very dominant to one side, because you just don't see as many lefties. So yeah, you can get that. And maybe that guy, maybe Sekulic didn't read the scouting report either. That could happen too.
Well, but yeah, just seeing Luis getting back to full song and how he was engaged, those three instances in the first 10 minutes just stood out to me. And it's like, okay, yep, Luis is back and he's rolling. And so it was good to see that too.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Luis was good. I thought, obviously, Cisneros because of the goals. I thought Brooks, I mean, really, I didn't think anybody was bad. Gutman and Moreno were the ones who got the lower scores on SofaScore, and Ibarra did too. And I'd like to fight SofaScore about this personally, because he won 5 tackles, he had interception, he was 40 of 47 passing, and his tackle created the goal. There's not really a stat for that. Maybe we need it.
Yeah.
Tackle assists, I don't know. We need to come up with that because I thought Ibarra was so good in this. Couple of other numbers that just jump off the page at you when you get into this. Alan Franco, 98 of 102 passing, 96.1%. It's pretty perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Mateus Osetsu, 95 of 99, 96% passing. We mentioned Alex DeJong coming on 60 of 63. Moreno only had 2 passes that didn't connect the whole time. Moreno led the team. Moreno and Almada led the team in progressive dribbles. Araujo was in that category as well. Shot created actions. I mean, it's spread out, and this has been the thing that's been consistent all year long. Is it's not one guy creating shots for others. It's not one guy creating shots for themselves. Moreno had 5 shot created actions. Araujo had 5. Almada had 4. Ibarra had 3. Lennon had 3. Osetsu had 2. Ronald Hernandez had 1. Gutman had 1. Heineman had 1. Cisneros had 1. 26 on the day is above the season average and has been pretty much on trend with where they've been over the last 4 or 5 games, where they've been a team in the league who has got more shots than almost everybody, more shots on target than almost everybody, more expected goals than almost everybody, more shot created actions than almost everybody, top 2, 3, 4 in all those categories. And goals, nope, towards the bottom. Well, that's changed now, and that needs to continue to change because it's what it comes down to. We can talk about all that, and it's important because when you're not doing that, it's not sustainable to keep getting goals. When you're doing that and not getting goals, that's not sustainable either. Kind of got back to where it should be in a game where you have 26 shot created actions, in a game where you had, as I pull it up really quick, key passes 11, Araujo with 3, Lennon with 3, Almada with 2, Moreno 1, Gutman 1, Ronald Hernandez with 1. 11 key passes. You had the XG what it was. You had the shots where they were. All of it actually fit this time because you got the goals to show for it. So that's what it comes down to. And as good as Dwyer was in the Open Cup game, he hasn't been able to consistently be part of the team since. Ronaldo Cisneros, I think, has been building in confidence, and he's got not just this game with goals, he's got goals on to his name now, and he's got quite a few. And I think if anything's going to build some confidence for him, it's this one. And the interesting question comes up with Open Cup, Jarrett. You know, you do want to rotate. You do want to keep guys fresh. You got a big game with New England coming up on the weekend in league. Do you play Dwyer in the Open Cup, or do you ride the hot hand in Cisneros and then just have to deal with Sunday when you get to Sunday?
I think it depends on how Dwyer's feeling, but I'm inclined to go with Cisneros as the hot hand right now because I think Gonzalo Pineda coming out of the Seattle mindset into the Atlanta mindset, which is very similar, is we're going to take the Open Cup very seriously. Yeah, you might rotate a couple guys, but you're going to go for this thing. And we don't know what Nashville's going to do necessarily yet. I mean, we won't know till they get on the field. Not to say to call Gary Smith a liar about what he says during the week, but you know, he might hold his cards close to his chest to how he wants to set this up to go for an Open Cup. They've literally never played in one. They came into existence in 2020 as an MLS club. They've never played in an Open Cup game.
The
But
last
he may not
time,
have much choice, though.
what's that, John?
But Gary Smith may not have much choice when it comes to
Why would he
rosters.
not have much choice? What are you talking about?
Just like mentioned the idea that he doesn't have a second team. So that rotation, if you're serious, that rotation on short rest, you may not be able to rotate as many guys into this match as you would.
No.
They've also been on the road an absolute ton this year.
John, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, like, where else is Luke Hawkinson going to get games?
Yeah. That would be Open Cup.
Yeah. So yes, they would rotate an Open Cup. That's what the point that I was making.
A lot of travel on those legs already this year.
So they could. I'm not saying they will. I don't know. I don't know what direction he's going to go. You know, his last Open Cup game involving an Atlanta team was the Silverbacks at the Red Bulls in 2015. He was in the Open Cup with Nashville SC and USL in 2018 and 19. But that's a different scenario entirely. That's where you're running uphill with a USL team in that. So he's got a pretty broad roster of guys who need games. And does he decide, okay, I'm going to get them games here? Or as the schedule gets, you know, a little compressed, not really too much because, you know, they didn't have to pile on a bunch of road games in the midweek. pretty much just a normal schedule flow. They were just all on the road early. I mean, I'll pull up the roster right now and look at games played in league. You've got Handwala Bwana, who has not played this season. Josh Bauer hasn't played this season. Ahmed Longmire hasn't played this season. Ethan Zubak's got 2 minutes. Luke Hawkinson's got 23 minutes played. I absolutely would not be surprised to see Ake Loba start up top because they got to get him going. He's played in every game, but he hasn't started one. Teal Bunbury's only played in 4. Do you play 2 up top? Brian Anunga's only played 172 minutes. Taylor Washington's played 198. You've got Dax McCarty at 35 years old. Do you rotate him? And this is why you go get somebody like Sean Davis. You could play him with Anibal Godoy. You could play Anunga in there with Davis. You've got a lot of possibilities in how you could rotate it, but you got a bunch of guys who haven't played. So what do? Do they take it seriously, or do they say, you know what? Hey, these guys have traveled a lot this season. Let's rotate it through. Let's give some other guys minutes. If it bounces out of Open Cup, it bounces out. I haven't really seen a lot of promotion on their end on it. So I don't know if they're not really taking it all that as a big deal with the club in general. And maybe everything is in sync with that. I don't know. I'm curious about it because, you never know when you get into this tournament how managers and how teams are going to approach it. And I really don't have a sense of how Gary Smith is going to approach this.
No, neither do I. I'm very interested to see how he lines it up. As far as Atlanta goes, yeah, I mean, you might rotate guys. It might be Rocco Rios Novo getting a shot in goal.
I think it will be Rocco. I think that's a safe bet because I believe the plan was to give Shuttleworth the Open Cup game before the injury to Brad to get him games. And Rocco's going to need games, so give him the Open Cup. And I think he's been with the team long enough to make that work.
And shout out to Bobby too. Like Bobby did pretty well. Yeah. I mean, that goal goal Saturday he's not saving that in that situation. No. Made a good save late, got down low. Again, I thought he brought the pace down when he needed to.
Yep.
Distribution was good. Also, he was actively going to fight somebody in the third goal when he got shotted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the highlights of the game that I don't know if everybody caught it. A 4 clocked him on what turned into goal number 3. Shuttleworth played it forward. A 4 hit him late. I think Shuttleworth might have gotten remnants of a black eye from it. He looked like a shiner. But after the goal goes in, I immediately turn to my left and I see Bobby kind of hobbling out of the goal with his sights set on a 4. And the AR came charging in from the far side to interrupt him, which was a good thing because both of them might have got sent off.
You don't want to mess with Western New York. You don't want to do that. Bobby's from Tonawanda.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to fight a 4 either from the mean streets in Nigeria. So it's not a good situation for either one. Thank you, AR, for putting in the sprint and getting there in time. But yeah, Bobby was fired up because he got caught late. It was pretty cheap from a 4. I thought it deserved possibly a look from the VAR, but they didn't. So yeah, Bobby wanted to fight. That was funny.
One other guy that we haven't talked about yet, Emerson Hyndman. Would you see him in Open Cup to get minutes here in the midweek, or want him more toward the weekend with New England coming to town?
Well, I mean, Hyndman's not anywhere near starting a game right now. I don't think. So, I think he can probably give you 15, 20, maybe 30 in both.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's close to starting right now. I don't see him and see that he looks like he's close to starting.
Well, while we stay in the midfield, let's ask this question, Jason. Is there anyone you would look to from Atlanta United 2 who could be involved in the game day 18 that people should be keeping an eye on?
I mean, Mertz is the obvious one in the midfield, but I don't know if you really need anybody in the midfield because I think you're good there. I think Noah Cobb is kind of a no-brainer. Matt Lowry told us that he had been training for 2 weeks before Generation Adidas Cup. Then he goes to Montreal when he gets back. Noah Cobb's a no-brainer, and that doesn't count towards his limited call-ups available for MLS play. Open Cup doesn't count towards that, so you can bring him up for that. Outside of that, I don't know if I would look at any others. Mertz would be possible. I mean, barring, anything, and Gonzalo Pineda is going to speak to the media today ahead of the game because the team's traveling tomorrow after practice. Barring any injuries or just fatigue or workload, you could bring up McFadden and leave Lennon if you wanted to do that because of the minutes that Brooks has played. McFadden could be cover on the right side. What?
I'm sorry. When Rado Hernandez came in for Caleb Wiley, I kept thinking, oh, they're going to give Brooks a break and let him not play. Nope. He's Brooks is out there Iron Manning it again.
Yeah,
Gutman's been doing the same thing.
Yeah. Gutman had played every minute before Montreal where he got subbed. Honestly, before the Open Cup game where he got subbed because he started that too. And Wiley, it was talked about after the game. Pineda said that he doesn't like to do that where you sub somebody on and you sub them off, but he was hobbling. I don't know if it's a sprain or a kick. I thought it was a kick. I thought he got hit on the kind of ankle bone, which really hurts if you've been kicked on that.
I thought it was, and
I didn't see a buckle of the ankle is what I was looking at.
Well, it was a play. It was that play about right after he came on the field where he's sprinting down the left-hand side. I forget who it is. It's an astoundingly good tackle.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just kind of as he's sliding through, I think he catches Caleb. And I was trying to be very clear about it after the game. Like, no, it wasn't like a malicious tackle or anything.
No,
it's just he makes a great tackle, and as he's sliding through, Caleb kind of steps over him and may have gotten I don't know. I'm wondering if he caught like a cleat on the ankle bone. If you've ever felt like that,
that's not fun.
It's awful. It's like getting hit in the elbow. There's nothing real. What you can rub it. There's nothing else you can do about it. And rubbing it's not really going to help. You're just kind of sitting there in misery for a bit.
I thought it was that. I think ankle sprain was said afterwards, which worries me. But I didn't see any buckling of the ankle. So hopefully it's just a kick and it was contact and it wasn't clearing up. So
the only thing I could think is that when he was coming past him, if he rolled over if the defender rolled up on his ankle a little bit. That's the only thing I was thinking it might have been.
If there's a sprain, I think in this case it's probably fairly minor, which still could take you out of Wednesday. But I don't think it was a significant one, hopefully. Ankle injuries, usually if there is any kind of a significant roll, my stomach turns because my left ankle's silly putty at this point, and that's the injury that I never want to watch. And I know everybody else gets worked up about like broken legs and broken arms and those kinds of things. I see somebody roll their ankle completely over, I feel like I'm going to throw up because I felt like I'm going to throw up when that's happened to me. So I didn't see anything to that point. My stomach did not get turned from watching this with Wiley. So I will take that as a good sign. Hopefully it's nothing major. I don't think it is. But yeah, I mean, other things from the match, we talked about shot created actions. We talked about chances created. We talked about some of the passing numbers, and get into the defensive side of things a little bit. Cause I thought the team was very good defensively in this one. Overall, when looking at it, and it separated it here, right around where they've been lately. That's the other element of this. And when we get back to, like what was different, honestly, the thing that was different was the goals and not how you created them and not what you did to create them and not how you defended as a whole and not how you kept to the ball as a whole. It was honestly just goals. And, like, it's easy to say goals change games. They do, obviously. Where they're scored changes games. When you get what you got in the first half from Ronaldo Cisneros, it changes the game. Chicago has to open up a little bit more. You defend a little bit more in the second half. It's what the game turned into. You were comfortable the whole way. And getting a 2-goal cushion can do that for you. It's nice when you get those. And that's something that when you're looking at Wednesday and then you don't play again in league until Sunday, you're not playing Saturday. That helps you a little bit more. It is Sunday afternoon, so it's early, but you didn't have a lot of hard work in the second 45 on Saturday night. That helps you a little bit for Wednesday. That might allow somebody like Brooks Lennon to go. That might make it comfortable to start, Almada, Araujo, Moreno, maybe two of the three, maybe have one come off the bench. But it gives you a little more room to work with, in my opinion, because you didn't have to sweat it too much in the second half on Saturday night. And that helps you a bunch.
Just run Darwin out there with the rest of that attacking talent and just put some people in hell.
I mean, you could.
It's an obscene amount of just at some point a defender's just going to grab him and chain him to the ground. Just hold still. Jesus.
It's a lot of dribbling, Jared. You got to be careful about that. It's a lot of dribbling. It is. Anyway, yeah, good performance. Maybe even better mental strength to bounce back from conceding and bounce back from the injury to Miles. Any questions we need to hit, John, that we need to really get into here that are on the Twitch pitch? I don't want people to feel excluded.
No, just Michael Ruiz just discussing finally XG coming due from an attacking perspective as the last few games, but have to stop giving away the easy chances and the very few chances we do give up.
Yeah. The problem is, Michael, that's not going to happen because you look at how this team is built, you're going to give up better. You're not going to give up a lot of chances, but you're going to give up better chances because they're likely. Now, set piece situations are different. Leave those to the side. But run a play, and Parkey's talked about this. Garza's talked about this. Players this season have talked about this. Gonzalo's talked about this. You're going to get numbers forward, which means you're going to have fewer numbers back, which means if your pressure doesn't work as it should, and it did really well against Chicago, but if it doesn't, then you're going to get 2v2s, 1v1s, 3v3s, 3v2s. You're going to get those situations. So those should result in fewer chances because you're going to have more control, but better chances on average for the opponent if they do what they should do. It's the trade-off you make. The trade-off, you're betting on having more chances and having good chances and having more control and scoring. That's what you're trying to do. Because it's really hard to start like defending to prevent XG, like it's not really possible. The only way you really defend to limit quality chances for the opposition is to get more numbers back or defend from a deeper position to crowd the area, and Atlanta's never going to do that. So you honestly, the way you deal with that is on the flip side of you score, you keep possession, you finish plays. The play finishes with a goal, with a shot, with a shot that is out for a goal kick, with something that stops the play. You don't allow the play to finish with a turnover that then the opposition can go forward and exploit that you've got numbers forward.
Abby had a question. She wanted to know if anyone got the captain's armband after Miles' injury.
No, everybody was obsessed with this. I did not see anybody with it. It doesn't matter. This isn't like a youth game where referees won't let you keep going unless somebody has it. The captain has no real duties. Back in the day, it was only the captain who could speak to the referee. So of course you had to have somebody as the captain.
Pretty sure that's still a thing in rugby.
Yeah, in rugby, not here. Because everybody talks to the referee all the time. Mm-hmm. So outside of the coin toss, it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's something that has meaning, of course, but you're not thinking about that when Miles is on a stretcher. Like, hey, dude, take the armband off and hand it to somebody. You're not thinking about that. You're not worried about that at that point. So nobody came out with it in the second half, again, because I don't think you're worried about it. I actually texted Jillian, who was, on the sideline for Bally's, and Jillian asked Rob, and Rob said that he was pretty sure that Allen was the one who was fulfilling the captain's duties, just in terms of being the leader in the back, but nobody had the armband. So everybody has to step up in that situation because, Miles wasn't the regular captain either. So, and everybody needed to step up to help him. So whoever wears it on Wednesday, It's just everybody's got to step up, and you're nobody's a captain and everybody's a captain kind of situation, and you've got to deal with it. Now somebody's got to go out for the coin toss on Wednesday and hand the pennant over to Nashville. So we'll see who does that.
GH, a positive note in how we broke Chicago's bunkering gives him hope that we could do that too against Nashville in the midweek.
They're different. They're very different in the way they defend. I didn't think Chicago necessarily bunkered here. I think Atlanta just had the ball and forced them back. It's a difference. They did go with a 5. If I remember right. Yeah, I think they went with 5 in the back. Well, it turned into 5 a lot. No, actually, they didn't. I'm sorry. Yeah. It could with Pineda dropping in as a center back, but he honestly didn't do that too much. Tehran coming in place of Shoes, that did not work well. The fullbacks, I think one thing that Chicago can do well is when they get forward, Sekulic and Miguel Angel Navarro are very good getting forward. They weren't able to do that too much here. And Federico Navarro and Mauricio Pineda and the 2 holding midfielders kind of got overran. Maybe Chicago did intend to sit deeper, and it's very possible they did. I don't think they had much of a choice here because I think Atlanta pushed them back. They probably should have went with a true line of 5 and dropped Pineda into the back line because he's played center back a good bit for them. But then the midfield would have got even more overrun, so it's kind of picking poison, right? Yeah,
I mean, especially that first goal, they were chasing shadows, man.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I think Atlanta came out on the front foot and took control of it. So even before we could see Chicago bunkering, they got forced back. Nashville will go line of 5, and they typically play something resembling if you want to look at it on a sheet of paper, you call it a 5-2-3. It doesn't play that way. It's much more of a 5-3-2 or a 5-2-2-1. I want to see what they do without Leal. That'll be interesting because I don't expect to see him play. Do they rotate the back line a little bit? But I think they keep the same shape. And they look to hit on the counter, and they're very good at hitting on the counter. So it's different, but you want to do the same thing in that you want to pin them. You don't want to allow Lovitz to get forward. You don't want to allow, if it's Muil as the right wing back, if it's Miller, you don't want to allow their wing backs to get forward. They can cause problems for you there. And if you keep possession and you make them be defenders, then you force them into the true line of 5, and they're further away from the attacking goal. And you can take advantage of that by finishing your plays and not turning it over and letting them break.
As I wind up my time in hour number 1, which I plan to be back for hour number 2, so there's that. You're welcome. It felt like a two-way. This is for me. It felt like a two-way street of regression. Like Atlanta creating chances regressed towards creating goals. You create that many chances without scoring goals, eventually regression, which goes in both directions, skews towards goals. I kind of felt like for Chicago, the last 3 games have been kind of a regression for them from the start of the season, where they're giving up opportunities, but they're keeping the ball out of the net. In the last few games, I think they've given up 11 goals in the last 3 games. It's been rough, man. I will say though, I was impressed. That's the first time I really gotten to watch Slanina play. The kid can play, man. The kid's good.
Yeah, he's legit.
He's in a firing range right now, but he's good.
I mean, what you mentioned about the XG for Chicago and what they've conceded, it was 2.9 against Orlando, and Orlando won 1-0. It was 0.5 against LA Galaxy, where both teams walked through that one asleep. It was 1.1 they gave it to Minnesota when they scored 3. It was 2 when they gave up 2 to Red Bulls, and it was 2.5 in this one, and it was 4, at least according to FB Ref. I know everybody's got different XG models, so they might skew a little bit one way or the other, but that's a lot of XG to concede in 4 games, and it's kind of starting to come true for them because they were conceding XG in the 1.5s and the 1.3s earlier on and getting clean sheets.
They've got to get their offense going somehow. I mean,
they got to get more of the ball. I mean, honestly, you look at this, like first game against Miami, it's a scoreless draw. They had 60%. Second game, scoreless draw against Orlando, 51%. Win over Sporting Kansas City, they had 54. Draw with Dallas, which is a good draw where you see where Dallas is now, 50. That was the last time they had 50% of the ball or more. It's been 39 in a loss, 45 in a draw, 44 in a loss, 42 in a loss, 39 in a loss. They've got to get on the ball more, because if you just allow your defense to be under siege and your goalkeeper to be under siege, you're going to concede.
And Jarrett, before you go, Wile E. Coyote wanted to mention Lassiter's Friday before you left. He wanted to make that point.
Oh, yeah. What'd you think about Lassiter doing the double, Jarrett?
Disappointed, but it happens. What do you think about Lassiter doing the double, John? Jason?
Well, they had a freshman goalkeeper who made 4 saves in 6 penalties in the girls' final, so I love that.
I hope she called everybody but a child of God and a sewing machine as she walked off the field.
Oh, she needed to. She made a couple big saves. It wasn't that there were 4 misses. She saved 4.
Yes.
In a shootout that goes 6 rounds and you don't score on your first 2. Lassiter did not score in their first 2. I think 1 was saved, 1 was missed. To bounce back from that and win it, that's crazy. And the goalkeeper was huge in it. The boys' game was a really weird one. There was a horrendous penalty given to Lassiter. It was 1-0 to Dalton, and the referee gave a penalty to Lassiter, told the Dalton coach, and it's been quoted in the newspapers up there, that the coach was told that gave it for the goalkeeper retaliating when he was run into by a Lassiter player, which, there was a collision. If it's a retaliation, I didn't see it from the box. The player didn't react from Lassiter. Like, he didn't fall down. He didn't dive. He didn't do anything. I didn't see a kick out. The motion that the referee was making on the field was that the goalkeeper kicked out at the player. I've never in all my time calling games and watching games seen a penalty and a yellow card given in that situation, because the attacker runs into the goalkeeper. It's a 50-50 ball. We know how these things go. Who knows what would have happened if it had been the referee crew from Vancouver and Toronto, right, Jared?
I was about to say that's going to be my parting shot. Is great job, refs in Vancouver and Toronto. Apparently, you are not allowed. Attackers all over the league will be disappointed to know you're not allowed to try and kick a loose ball.
No. The attacker would have been sent off in this high school game, but instead the goalkeeper gets a yellow card. A penalty is awarded for whatever this was, instead of what we typically see, the referee bringing everybody together saying, hey, don't run into the goalkeeper. Hey, don't swing out. Don't kick out of the guy. All right, we good? Let's play. But no, it gives a penalty. Is completely inexplicable. My mind was blown watching it. And that makes it 1-1. Dalton was shook after that. They did not respond to it well, and that's on them. And Lassiter played really well. They got a lot of momentum from that, and they played really well, and they get the win. They got a goal late to make it 3-1. They scored 1, I think, early in the second half to make it 2-1, and they got 1 late. And they were the better team on the day on the whole, but that penalty completely changed everything. So it was very weird. I've never seen a penalty given in that situation in all my days.
Sean, we can yell about VAR later when I get back on in the second hour.
I might yell at VAR anytime, Jared. I'm not going to wait for it.
Okay, that's fine. My advice, please go watch the end of the LAFC Philadelphia game. I know we talked about the kick out on the Discord, because I'm still not sure how that kick out wasn't a red. Because it's a blatant kick out into the thigh.
Who was the referee on that?
That would have been not just the referee. Who was the referee in the VAR on that?
Well, I was getting there. I was trying to build up to
it. He was building, Jared.
Come on, Jared.
Yes, sorry. The referee on that was Jeremy Rufo.
And he was on what game recently? The last game he refereed?
I believe that involved Atlanta.
Yes, and he had an oopsie, if I remember correctly.
He had an oopsie. It's absolutely a foul by Bedoya. Bedoya's fouling him because it's Bedoya. You still can't kick out. It reminds me of the Jermaine Jones, Tito Villalba one from 2017. Villalba with basically an orange card tackle on Jermaine Jones, and then Jermaine Jones loses his mind and kicks Villalba and gets kicked sent out.
Yeah,
but please go watch the 93rd minute of that game, where Philadelphia takes a corner, it goes out for a goal kick, and as LAFC is preparing to try and take this goal kick to go quickly to get the game winner, Jack Elliott just picks up the ball and starts walking to midfield with it. like just picks it up, starts walking. People try and take it
That's an
from him. He
approach.
starts like going around the world and just keep playing literal keep away.
We had a Moneyball situation at the.
All right, we got the official announcement. Ruptured Achilles tendon for Miles Robinson. Surgery later today. That is just dropped from Atlanta United. Sorry, Jarrett, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll talk to you later, Jarrett. Sorry to send you out on that note.
Oh yeah, he's
gone.
Yeah, he's gone and out the door.
All right, I didn't mean to run him out the door, but it is what it is. Look, I wasn't gonna speak out of school, and I hadn't been told anything. But you didn't have to be told anything if you've seen this happen, and we saw it a few weeks ago. So that is announced now. It is completely official by the club. Atlanta United today announced that Miles Robinson suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon in his left leg during Saturday's 4-1 win versus Chicago Fire FC. Robinson's scheduled to have surgery later today. So fingers crossed for Miles. Fingers crossed that they get in there and they say, "Oh, wait a minute, this isn't as bad as we thought it might be."
Yeah.
Doesn't look good timeline wise though. So we'll just have to wait and see. I hate it for him. Absolutely hate it for him. So in bad transitions down here, you do have some work to do, John, right now, and you have to tell everybody about our good friends over at Eliminize. Please do so.
I can do that. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Eliminize Service, proud sponsor of everything soccer down here for odor-free, clean, fresh air. One place you need to go, and it is Eliminize Service. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with, said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment we like that these days. It's a very green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue. Different than our favorite masking agents that we have under the sink, because when we pull out that masking agent and spray it in the air, that's all it does. It masks the odor. It doesn't attack the problem. Eliminize's proven scientific formula does that all the way down to the molecule. Pricing is easy, either by cubic feet or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any other questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's their website. But do us a favor, when you go to eliminize.com, after the .com goes /Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are contacting them from. So your full assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, eliminize.com /Atlanta. Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Nice work. Well, we'll get into some more questions and such. We will talk about all the different aspects of this, and I don't really know what else there is on it until he has the surgery, and then we hope that it is a faster recovery than the norm. But that's where we're at.
Well, and a lot of folks on the timeline this morning in discussing Miles were discussing how it would look for the men's national team and how they would address it, bringing in personnel at the back, and how that may look for Greg Berhalter next time around. There were questions as to who might be brought in.
Well, I mean, it's quick. I don't know what Greg had as kind of a big picture depth chart, but he did talk about it. He talked about it over the weekend, and then after the injuries kind of piled up, Doug McIntyre was on Fox last night ahead of the Austin LA Galaxy game and said that Berhalter may call up newcomers, was the quote, due to some of the question marks. I think initially he said he wasn't going to do that sort of thing because he kind of had a group and he wanted to roll with that and maybe look for additions. Now he's got to go different. McKinney, Reyna, Dest, Richards, Robinson, all have had injuries. All are completely different situations. John, I don't know why. I don't know if it's happening, if everybody can hear it, but I'm getting bleed over on you sometimes. So yeah, if you can mute at times, I don't know why that's happening. Cameron Carter-Vickers is one. Great year with Celtic. You need to see him with this group, and you really need to see him now. Haji Wright will be there as part of this group in June. So those two are being called in according to Doug McIntyre, so that was going to happen anyway. The injury for Miles definitely opens the door for John Brooks to come back, but McIntyre didn't think that was all that likely. So that one surprised me a little bit, but also it literally had been less than right about 24 hours when McIntyre was speaking. So that's going to change. If you were already looking at bringing in Cameron Carter-Vickers before Robinson was hurt, and now you're going to lose a center back and you can add another one. I mean, John Brooks has to be in that conversation. Does he get it? Does he start? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. I thought, Zimmerman and Robinson were a really good pair and probably would have been the pair. So now, who is it? It's got to be chemistry as much as just he plays in the Bundesliga, and where John Brooks plays next season is a big question too, because that's not defined. So there's a lot of stuff here. And what stinks about it is this is not a normal World Cup in that you're going to have a send-off series and games beforehand where, okay, you have an injury and you got to deal with it and you can work through it. You got 4 games, Morocco, Uruguay, Grenada, El Salvador, June 1, June 5, June 10, June 14. And then you got a camp in September, and that's it. That's it. You play on the first day of the World Cup. So you're going to get guys in who are playing in Europe after they played a week earlier, week and a couple of days. You might have some MLS guys in earlier than that, and it sounded like they were going to have probably like they did for the January window where they had an MLS-based camp, and guys will probably come in as they're eliminated from the MLS playoffs, and they'll be working, and then go into the week of the tournament starting. That's going to be rough. I mean, you might have a behind closed doors game that week, and you probably will be trying to find one now just to cover all your bases, but it's not a normal situation. So Carter-Vickers would have been my first answer, but he was already coming as a possibility. I mean, McKenzie and Richards, and he got another injury there. So McKenzie is one who could benefit. Brooks, this does need to be the sit down at this point. I think you need to bring Brooks in June, and even if he's not going to play or he's only going to play in part of it, you need to bring him in and kind of sit down and map out what you want him to do, because he's got to be in a good club situation in the fall, or even this door being open, there's going to be other guys who are playing consistently. Henry Kessler is another one who could be, back into the mix, who was kind of on the fringes of it with New England, although New England hasn't been great defensively, although you might be pointing at a former U.S. men's national team center back in Omar Gonzalez and some of that. It's tough. It's a tough situation, but I don't know where Berhalter is in terms of solving it just yet. He's got about a month, well, less than a month now, before that first game to figure out what he wants to do. Carter-Vickers probably the first one in the door to see where that looks like.
Bart is in, and he says it'll be Eric Palmer-Brown and Cameron Carter-Vickers, as well as Aaron Long. Brooks won't be back with this team under Berhalter, he thinks.
I would bring him in to have the conversation this summer. He might not. I mean, you might be right, Bart. I'm speaking more of what I think should happen as opposed to what will. Eric Palmer-Brown, I just need to see more. I'm not as sold. Aaron Long, he's been around the block. He might be the one who goes from a fringe player to getting on the roster. I don't think he goes into the team. I think the spot on the field opens up very possibly for Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think he might have first dibs on it. But the roster spot, if CCV was already coming into it, the roster spot could end up in Aaron Long's back pocket. But I think you have to have a conversation with Brooks. You need to do it, and you need to figure out where that is. Unless there's stuff there that, look, we just don't know. And, of course, you got all the rumors and innuendo and things being said about why it is what it is. And same thing Mexico's dealing with Chicharito. So, I mean, these things happen. But if with this injury, in my opinion, if it is something more than he hasn't been playing well, which you could say at times, you could absolutely say it at times, and then he bounced back and he was playing pretty well towards the end. Okay. Have the conversation if there's something else going on and sit down and see if you can work through it, because he is talented. He shouldn't be handed anything. I disagree with that. I think some think just because of where he's played that he should be there ahead of, Walker Zimmerman because he plays in the Bundesliga. No, I thoroughly disagree with that. But because of this injury, you need to have the conversation. And if it can be worked out, then you need to see if he can earn the spot back. But he's not going to be handed the spot, in my opinion, no matter what happens. Long and Palmer Brown will have good possibilities. I was forgetting about Eric Palmer Brown. Thank you, Bart.
And then Jason Nix ducking after he mentions the comment. He says he hears Michael Bradley can play center back in a pinch.
Yuck, 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 yuck. Why do we always take shots at Michael Bradley? Come on, let's stop. That's not fair. Michael Bradley is one of the best players the U.S. men's national team has ever had. Let's not take shots at Michael Bradley. He's old. He's not a national team player anymore.
Mr. Fantastic on the John Brooks discussion plays well for club, but on a national level, he's played poorly at times, which has been kind of where we've been.
He has. He's played poorly at club too. I mean, he's been up and down. He's not going back to Wolfsburg. Haven't really heard much of where he's going. So, I mean, that's another aspect of this is you can have the conversation with him and sit down and say, okay, yeah, cool. We worked out whatever. We're not on the same page. Cool. Let's see what happens. Well, he's got to be in a good club situation because that's the other element here is you got to have guys who are playing, and that's going to be complicated for Berhalter. So.
And that's what a lot of folks were going back and forth with John Brooks as a part of the World Cup discussion. We're caught up on the back line of the national team for the moment right now. But when we ducked into the Jair Marufo discussion, a lot of folks were discussing those actions of the weekend as well and how they weren't fans of LAFC not getting a red for the kick out. And
kick out should have got a red.
Yeah. Sean Vergara mentions that. ATL UTD was mentioning about the Mueller dive in the box, getting a card for that one as well.
Yeah, they've really gotten away from giving the yellow card simulation stuff. I think they should go back to it more and more. They don't do it a lot. That one did. That one did get it, unless I'm completely misremembering it, because if I remember right, he was sitting down trying to delay it. That's going to help.
Yeah.
Didn't he get a yellow for that?
Yeah, I think he did get a yellow.
So then what was the question?
No, just that it should have been more, perhaps.
No, it can't be. No, it can't be more. You can't. You can't give a red card for that. That doesn't exist. So he got a yellow for simulation. That's all you can give. I mean, he could be fined or whatever by disco, but he was punished on the field. So I doubt they will do anything because they didn't do anything to Patrick Klimala. Grabbing his face multiple times, trying to get people sent off. So if a yellow card's given here, they're not going to do it. I don't think there should be more. It's just a dumb decision for Mueller, honestly.
Coco says there was a simulation yellow in Argentina this weekend. Argentina had more simulation yellows this weekend than MLS. Let that sink in.
Well, Mueller had one. Probably even, I think. He did get a yellow for simulation. It was handled well. I thought the referee was good. Remy Tuchon isn't a regular, although he's been doing more games this year. He's been more regular as a VAR, but I thought he was good. I didn't have any issues. It's easy to say when it's a win, but I don't think he missed any of the big calls in the game. The game probably helped him a little bit because the second 45 wasn't as competitive, so that makes it a little bit easier to do, but yeah, I thought he was good. The referee in Vancouver, Toronto was atrocious because that's one of the worst goals being taken back that I've ever seen. Goalkeeper has no control of it, no control over the ball. Might have got a hand to it as it was being kicked into the goal, but that's insane protection of a goalkeeper. It's a loose ball. So no, that's a horrendous call. The kick out, I can understand how you'd miss it live and the VAR would have to send that down. And as I was alluding to with Jared, it was the same ref and VAR combo that Atlanta and Inter Miami had, that the VAR sent the penalty down for Marufo to look at on Lennon, and Marufo said no, and then Pro said, yeah, you got that wrong, and then Marufo didn't work as a center the next week. Now you've got another one. Now we don't know how this went because it wasn't looked at on the field, but was it recommended to? Because the referee can say no to the recommendation. And I have to question that now after what happened last time. So did he say no to Jose Carlos Rivero and say, I got it? Or did Rivero not send it down? Because you have to know that to know who messed up here. Because it should have been a red. It's a kick out. It definitely should have been a red.
Thomas Gwynn, Jair must see consequences at this point. He needs to miss assignments for those two huge.
No, that's not fair, because if he didn't see it in live action, I'm not holding him accountable here. And if it wasn't sent down, this is why when we get into the situation, the details are very, very important. If it was not recommended for review and he didn't see it live, then no, that's not his fault. That's on the VAR. Just because it didn't get done in this case, if it wasn't recommended, that's not on him. If it was and he said no, then it's on him. So you have to be specific here. And he already missed an assignment. At least it looks that way, because he was the VAR for a game the next week after the Miami situation. So, and look, guys, I mean, we've got to be a little realistic here in the situation, because it's not like Marufo's a bum. He is a top referee in this league. He is. You can like it or not. He made a bad call, but he is. He didn't work a game the next week. I would have loved for that to have been announced as, hey, we've pulled him from a game. He's going to do VAR instead. I would have loved that. They didn't. I can take at least an assumption that was the case, but I don't know that for sure. But you don't want to keep sitting one of your best referees. You want to figure out what's going wrong and you want to fix it. You want to have corrective action. But there's plenty of referees that I do not want working a game over Jair Marufo, period. And in this case, I just need to know what happened. But are we going to find out? Who knows? Because it's pro, and that's the thing that's so difficult here. We need to know, because this needs to be explained. It's pretty clear when you see the replay that the player retaliates with studs to the knee region. I don't have it in front of me. I'll say knee region to be safe. That's a red. That's a red. There's no way around it. But did Marufo spot it live? I'm assuming he did not. But if he did and thought that wasn't a red, then that's on him. If he didn't, and the VAR did not send it down for a review, then that's on the VAR. And he might not have been able to see it. You got to remember that too. You got to remember where he was on the field. Did he have an angle? Could he have seen it? If he didn't and the VAR didn't help him, then it's on the VAR. It's not on Marufo. So we just got to have the details, and they've got to give us the details, but they probably won't.
Sean saying that the VAR needs to be centralized conversation starts again. If refs can just say no, then it defeats the purpose.
Well, no, it doesn't defeat the purpose, but it is a very different situation than in other sports. And we do have to understand that, because this is a sport played worldwide, and some competitions have VAR and some competitions literally don't have the resources for VAR. So you do have to, and IFAB can do this, and they should, but you do have to create a laws of the game modification. And I think IFAB should do it rather than leagues doing it on their own. It just gives you a little more backup if you do it that way, to where the center referee, and you got to be careful with this, because outside agents making calls is not always a good thing either. It doesn't always fix everything. But center referees have to be more willing, and in general they are, because we can't forget the conversation that we have within the situation, and we had it when Marufo went to the monitor. Far more often than not, when a referee goes to the monitor to look at it, they call what was being recommended. Not 100% of the time, obviously, but a lot of the time. So that happens already. You don't get a lot of situations where you have this. And because we're dealing with human beings and the referee is the senior person in charge of the game, yeah, they do need to have the ability to say no. They do need that. But they have to be willing to listen, and generally they are. So I'm good with centralized VAR. Let me make that clear. I'm not 100% sold that you should take the decision making out of the referee's hand, because I don't know if that 100% of the time makes it better, because that can get it wrong too. What I want more than anything is dedicated video assistant referees who only are video assistant referees, and in my opinion, therefore, would earn more respect for their work as dedicated video assistant referees and more trust from referees in making decisions. That's the number one thing I want. The decision making power, I want to see how it would work with dedicated VARs and in a central location. I'm fine with that rather than them being on site. And I think that's actually even already happening at times, although it's not being publicized. I do remember Max Bretos talking about a VAR not on site on a game early this season, which I was like, whoa, what? And of course, the stuff that seems to be Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I don't know. I'm fine with them being central because I think it makes it easier for them to be dedicated video assistant referees rather than guys on their day off from being in the middle being a VAR. I want somebody who is trained thoroughly to be a VAR and know what decisions they're looking for, know what the referee needs help with, and that's their job. Just like ARs are not center referees doing their thing. Fourth official, different conversation. You can do that. But the VAR has to be a dedicated position. Of course, you're speaking about referees, and Jarrett shows up.
He's talking about VAR after on a weekend where VAR was just questioned. Let's go with questioned.
Questioned is where I'm at. I need to know, like I said, what happened with the LAFC incident. Did Marufo, was he told there was an angle? Was he told there was nothing? Did he see it well? Was he screened? I need to know how that didn't result in a red. And these are the ones that Pro has to break down. So then we can have a educated, honest conversation about how you fix it, because it was a mistake.
Yeah, and then I've got I look forward to hearing, hopefully next Saturday they will release the audio on the
Hopefully.
Rather hopeful.
Hopefully they release the audio on the Vancouver-Toronto situation.
Yeah,
It'll be the one that happened at the other end.
Hopefully. We'll see. It should be a lot earlier than Saturday, but
that's just been when they were doing it, so that's what I'm expecting.
No, I know, and that's wrong. That's what's so messed up, is it should not be that long. It isn't really anywhere else in the world that I know of. They got it. They have people who know if it's right or wrong. It should be out today. It should be out today. And they should have the footage, and I would assume they have people who can edit and make it work to release it publicly and blur out any naughty words if they have to, and be good to go. They should be able to put it out on the Monday after the weekend games. At a minimum, Tuesday. Releasing it Saturday morning at like 8 a.m. in a written article with the audio dropped from the video, that was horrendous. They can't be doing that, but they do, and it's not acceptable. So you want to be transparent, and they need to be transparent. Do it right.
What made it even worse for me with that one in particular was the fact that if you watched the video segment, the last clip they did was kind of a fun, joking thing where they quote unquote VAR'd basically like a charity match.
Yeah, no, it was a testimonial. It was for a great cause.
Yeah, it was great cause, and they were having fun with it. But but doing that while not covering the hot topics It's a bad look, man. But I am interested to see what they say about the Toronto one, just because it was such a weird situation. And yeah, that was Bob Bradley. Bob Bradley, I'm sure had a very colorful conversation about it after the game.
Yeah. Well, he did have some comments. I think he did kind of protect himself, though. It's a mistake. This is from Bob Bradley, post-game press conference. And obviously we have, I think, VAR is what he said. And that's on the VAR. It's in brackets, so I don't know exactly what word he used. To see it, it's clear. Everyone that has seen it realizes that Hasal never had control. It's too bad that I think they say that he might have broken or dislocated his finger. He did have to come out of the match. That's too bad, but I don't know exactly. That might have been on the shot as the ball came loose. So he never had control. It's a good goal, and the system fails. You can have a system, but if the person responsible in that moment can't see that, then the system doesn't work. So we'll see what Pro has to say about it, but for me, it's a clear mistake. That's pretty measured from Bob. It's 100% correct, but that's pretty measured.
Also on the board, Bart says in our Jair Marufo discussion, Bart feels Marufo's past his prime, and that's the issue. Send him to the USL.
I don't think that's the issue here. I know Bart was talking about his covering the field, and no, you can't send him to the USL because there's not enough referees who are better than him. You can say he's past his prime, and that's fine, but he's still one of the best referees in the league. He was last year. You don't completely lose it in a year. I disagree with that. You can go through the list of referees in MLS, and I'm taking Marufo over a good number of them. But you got one that he's now been rebuked publicly by Pro, and this one, I need to know what happened. Because if it's on him, it's on him. Then that's two in short succession. And then, maybe you got to figure out what happens next. But the problem is there's not 50 referees sitting out there just waiting for opportunities for somebody to mess up. I mean, we watch USL Championship home games regularly, and yeah, there's not a lot that I'm like, yep, move that one up. They're ready. And it's hard. It's hard. Development's hard. I get it, but I don't think there's really a process for development. It's much more hit or miss, and it needs to be better. And now we've got enough referees, and Jair Marufo will be part of this conversation because of his experience. We've got enough referees who've been around the block, and they know what it takes, and they know what works, and they know what's right nationally, and they've done FIFA games, and they need to be involved in creating the development pipeline that is real and not just a signer saying, yeah, I like that person. Yeah, I don't like that person. Yeah, that person has played the political game. Yeah, that person isn't part of the clique. Like there needs to be a real system, and quality needs to rise, but there also needs to be more quality. And Marufo is not one of the worst referees in MLS. He's not. I'm sorry, he's not. But he's got one mistake on his books right now, and he might have a second depending on how that situation was handled, and that has to be addressed.
We were talking about the Pro news dump, and Sean says, I wonder why Pro doesn't get in front of some of these just from a transparency standpoint. Even if we disagree, it's still better than hide it.
I think the issue that I have with it more than anything is when they first started doing it, they did. And they were out in front of it. And they were, if I remember correctly, and I could be misremembering it, it was earlier in the week, and it was more vocal about what went wrong. Well, I think they started doing this in 1920. I want to say it was 20 is when it really started to get more transparent. But then they had a lot of issues to deal with. They had a lot of mistakes. And look, 2020 was a difficult year for everybody involved. You were trying to limit travel, I think, at times with referee assignments, which maybe affected quality of referees available. And I think some referees didn't work. I think you actually had an injury or two in that mix too. So you had a lot of issues. And it went from being very transparent to then the phone calls to clubs and the oopsies being dropped into different things. And it got like, oh, now we have too many issues, so we can't be as transparent. And that's not how it works. Like that's not how it can work here. So they got to fix that. They will earn more respect, and they will earn more trust if they come out on Tuesday for midweek games. And on Thursday or Friday, if you want to give them an extra day, I'm fine with that. 4 games that happen on Wednesday. And do both the written, which can go into more detail, and the video, but the video has to have all the issues. The video can't hide things. The video review of the video reviews cannot leave things out that are big moments, like a penalty that was not given late in a match. That's unacceptable because you had the footage and you have to explain what happened. So then when we're talking about it, when fans are talking about it, we can say we know what happened and we understand refereeing better. Because I never want to be a commentator who just referees bad. That referee's bad. Cost the game. Referee bad. I want to figure out why they missed something. I want to explain what they missed. Because I think too many times people are incorrect over what they think a referee did wrong. And we've had these conversations about incidents that are tricky to deal with. And I know I put in my work trying to read those. I forget what it's called now. The written piece on Pro's website, definitive angle or whatever it is. I try to read that. I try to read when IFAB makes changes. I try to read when Pro comes out and says we're going to start focusing on this. I want to be informed because I don't want to mislead the audience on a situation that people think is a bad call, but it's actually a right call, or a situation where a referee got a call wrong and how they get it wrong. We've got to have the information to be able to do that. And long term, that's for the good of the game, and it's for the good of the referees. So Pro needs to be better about that and not be as worried about it. They're not going to make it worse by being more transparent. They're making it worse by not being transparent, in my opinion. If they have to talk about more mistakes, talk about it and fix them. And fix it and work to fix it. I'm not expecting the referees to be 100% perfect every time. That's an unfair expectation. But I am expecting with VAR that they get the big situations right. I'm not getting hung up on, is that a foul in the middle third or not? I'm not getting hung up on, persistent infringement I get hung up on, but that's subjective. That's not easy to define. I get hung up on it, but I'm not going to say a referee should be fired because of it. When you start missing a penalty, when you miss a red card, those are game-changing situations. The other things are different, and they're different levels of frustration. You miss a penalty, yeah. You miss a red card, yeah. You give a penalty that shouldn't be given, yeah. You give a bad red card, yes. We got a problem there. Those can't happen because you have VAR to back you up. The other stuff, let's work on game management. Let's continue to build that and get better at it and have more consistency with it. But you should be getting the big calls right. And they have the tools to do it.
Because I would much rather sit here and at least get a rationale as to why something was called, to understand what they were thinking in the process. Even if it's wrong, I'd still like to know why they made the decision they made, instead of hiding behind an idea and not telling me something, because I think not telling me something, even if it's bad, makes it worse, if that makes any sense.
One thing we do have to be careful about, and this was, I think we explained it properly with the Jair Marufo one in the initial conversation around it before they said it was an oopsie. Getting it wrong, as you said, is not always easy to define. Because, even that one, it's a judgment call. It was the judgment of the video assistant referee that it should have been a penalty. It was the judgment of Pro that it should have been a penalty. It was the judgment of Marufo that it shouldn't have been. It's a judgment. It's not black or white, but it's a judgment. So ultimately, when the governing body says he got it wrong, then okay, we can go further in that he got it wrong, but it's still a judgment call. Where it's right or wrong is, did it happen inside the 18? Is it a handball, when you can actually define it and look at where the arm is and look at where it hit and that kind of stuff. Judgment calls are hard. And even I need the explanation of why you got to that point. And the explanation in that one was what was faulty with Marufo about leaning forward. And that's where it's like, okay, you're already creating something here that doesn't necessarily matter. So it's a tough job. I don't want to just be referees are terrible and people then post and stuff. And Jared, I mean, I popped off on it yesterday on our direct messages like, oh, it's not even a real league because they got this wrong. Yeah, go watch England, go watch Italy, go watch Germany, go watch France, go watch Spain, go watch Argentina, go watch Brazil, go watch Mexico. They're real leagues and they get things wrong because it's hard. Even with VAR, it's still hard. Like that stuff's nonsense. But when you're not transparent about explaining what went wrong, that stuff comes up more, in my opinion. If you're transparent, people understand how it got wrong and they're mad, but they understand what went wrong.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Is you got to have that transparency. And we've talked about it a million times. If you've got to have that transparency about, hey, a mistake was made. Here's what happened, and here's what went wrong. That sort of thing. Like you got to have that conversation because it's just, yeah, man. You can't be having these mistakes and then picking and choosing which ones to talk about because you want to make things look good or look bad. You can't be having segments that are meant just to basically play crossfire with each other and then create narratives out of it. Like it doesn't look good. It's just that part comes across as amateurish.
It does. It absolutely does. And it's got to be better. We'll see. We'll see if they get there. They need to stop worrying so much about looking bad because they're looking worse by not talking about these things more. And there should never be a private apology sent to a team in a situation. That shouldn't happen. It should be very public and it should happen faster, not bury it on game day the next match week. So hopefully they'll get there. Hopefully they get there. Refereeing has to improve everywhere. It does. It's the game's gotten faster. The game's gotten harder to deal with. It's harder for referees to keep up. IFAB has to continue to look at the rules, look at the laws of the game, make modifications like they're talking about with offside. VAR changes the paradigm at times of really how things are as opposed to how we thought they might have been before. So there's a lot to deal with here, but they have to keep working at it. And hiding mistakes, I don't think helps. I think it hurts it more. So let's move past that. And fans also do have to be more understanding of how mistakes can happen and what they are, and understanding of judgment call versus a more black or white situation. Like that, we do have to get to that, but it's hard for us to explain it thoroughly if we don't have all the information, which we need. So come on, pro.
So then Uncle adds, I think the trust with pro has long eroded for fans by now. What do you guys think with?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it has, but I think fans are generally predisposed to not trusting referees in any sport. So I don't know if it would be different if pro acted differently. I would hope that it would be. But yeah, I think, and some of this, and look, this is something that I take really seriously, is I hear it on games. I hear it on national games. I hear it on other games. I hear it on local games. I hear it at all levels. Commentary that is incorrect about a decision, or commentary that is incorrect about what a referee should or shouldn't do. I don't always get it right, but I damn sure try. And I do put in my work in studying laws of the game and changes and all of that. I remember the incident with LGP in Chicago where he got a handball. I think his arm was down. He got a handball call and ended up getting a
His
red.
arm was his arm was like bracing his body up, but I think it was before the change in the laws of the game applied to MLS.
Yes, that was what it was. It was before the change applied to MLS. And because I think it had been announced for the upcoming season, because it was in the summer, it was like a July one. It had been announced for the upcoming season in Europe, but MLS generally, because of the calendar, those laws take effect the following year. So I remember the explanation being incorrect. I think the ESPN Plus feed might have been the Chicago feed in this, and it was wrong. And it was like, oh, they got it wrong. They got it wrong. It's like, actually, no, they got it right in the situation. You hate it, but they got it right. It should have been a red because that's the way the laws were written for MLS at that time. Like there is, in my opinion, a lot of responsibility on us commentators to understand that aspect of it. And that's why I want Pro to help us more. I want more explanation. I want more. I want less pushback is maybe a fair way to put it. We've talked about the incident with the goalkeeper obstruction with Caden Clark's goal in 2020. And Daniel Royer jumps out of the way of the shot, and Brad Gazan felt like he had to stay where he was because of Royer's positioning. The referees said that he was not in the line of sight, therefore he didn't interfere with Brad Gazan's ability to be able to make the save. I explained the deflection possibility, and that's why Brad has to stay where he is, and he can't sell out to the shot. And we were told before we finished our post-game show that was incorrect by Pro. And then a couple months later, it was called the way that we were describing it in a Champions League game in Europe, which shows you that there is subjectivity to this. But don't be so defensive in those moments. Like, set the groundwork for how Pro is going to handle it. Because all right, fine. I'll toot my horn on this one. I had the right perspective on it. I had a perspective that it was at least held up by UEFA later and the referee crew on that game and others that I've seen happen. And if Pro disagrees and they want it done differently, that's fine. You don't have to get defensive. Just say, our instruction in this situation to our referees is it is purely line of sight. It is a black or white issue. Are they in the line of sight of the goalkeeper? If they are not, then they are not considered offside, giving an advantage. And that's fine. I'll disagree with it, but okay, then we know. Don't get defensive and be like, no, that's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. That it's not. It's subjective because that's the way the law's written. Create how you want it done, and then be consistent with it, because reportedly they wanted to crack down more on transition fouls, and they don't do that consistently. So if set the directives, be clear on them. When something happens, explain it, explain how the referee did it, explain that's how you want them to do it, and then be consistent. And when the referees then don't follow the directive, you have to say they didn't and they got something wrong in a big situation. So I just want more from Pro, because I want to be able to give more to the audience, and I want to give them the right information, because I don't want referees to just be yelled at all the time.
Philosophical question for you, and this is just
Sure.
something that has popped up into my head as we've been discussing this. And
Jared, I'm afraid. I'm very afraid.
Officials and their conditioning and all that kind of stuff. Okay. In hockey, as the game got faster and the players got faster and bigger, and the game
I think I am afraid.
Got, it was more end to end. They added a second referee.
Can't do it. Nope.
No.
Have you ever seen a game with two referees? It happens. Some high school games have done that. I don't know if they still do. They luckily don't at the state level. It's insanity, because the referee sets the tone for so much. If you have two whistles, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's not the same. To me, it's not the same, because in hockey, in basketball, although basketball's closer, fouls are more black or white, I think. I don't think they're that way in this game. And I think the card situation and management, I don't want in one half of the field somebody being like a stickler and throwing cards like crazy. In the other half, the guy's like, yeah, let them play. It's all good.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know you're not going to assign them that way, but I don't want that to even come up. I don't think it works. The times I've seen it tried, it doesn't work, in my opinion. So no, I don't think it works. I think what you do to bridge the gap is more support from VAR, fourth official, on things. And frankly, and I don't know this for a fact, but frankly, with headsets being, part of the mix now at the highest levels, I would hope that even if the laws of the game don't necessarily point you there, that the fourth official is helping the referee where they can and saying, hey, this happened behind you. Hey, you might not have had a good look at this, but keep an eye on number 8. Number 8's running hot. Keep an eye on him. He took a swing at somebody. Keep an eye on him. Those kinds of things. And VAR should get involved in the conversation. I know there's only certain things that they can intervene in, but use the technology. Use the power that you have. You've got headsets now. You've got more eyes, and you've got a way to tell the referee what you're seeing. Do it, and do it right, and the referee's got to control it, and that's a lot of juggling. But I would hope that they're bridging that gap some. See, instead of giving 2 whistles, because I think that would just create chaos.
Bard on Pro again, as he says, it seems like Pro has turned from an assigning and developing tool to a union that backs the refs no matter what.
Too often it feels that way, and it shouldn't, because it needs to be the other way. Because if I am not mistaken, the referees have their own union, and that is separate, and they are protected, and they should be protected because they take too much crap. And when you've got some fan bases trying to dox a referee and nonsense like that, stop. That's idiotic. They've got protection from a union. Pro is not that. Pro has to be the bridge between the referees and the leagues that are being assigned for. And the leagues need the referees to not make big mistakes and affect the competition. And it's happening too often, and it's not being explained well enough. And that needs to happen. The development side of it has to happen more, because I don't think it happens enough. And that might be a bigger conversation with the U.S. Soccer Federation and the leagues on the whole. But that has to be part of it, because we need more. We need more referees. We need better referees as we go, because we're getting more games at a higher level, and there's only so many referees around right now. And we need VAR to be more defined and have dedicated video assistant referees. That is the number one thing for me.
And all right, so I've asked for resubmissions of questions if I missed them so far, and thoughts. A non-pro question.
Okay.
I know. And Bart says, and we haven't even talked about the mistakes in the NWSL from the weekend.
Yeah, and I didn't see all of them, but I know enough.
Modiflow asks, why do you think some people are okay with players like Serginho Dest dribbling, but not players like Marcelino Moreno? It is hyperbolic with an exclamation point.
It is ridiculous, as Modiflow chooses violence this morning. I like it. I frankly, I don't know. There was a back and forth in the post-game media with Doug Robertson and with Gonzalo Pineda. I mean, it's the 2 people who were talking. And I think Doug started with the question, and John, you were there. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I think Doug started with the question, what was different essentially in this game? And Gonzalo said, well, I'll ask you, what do you think was different? Because we didn't do anything different. We played the same. And Doug said there was less dribbling, which there wasn't. The numbers don't back that up. They had the same number of dribble attempts roughly as they've had. It's all in the 15 to 20 range. I don't understand the issue with dribbling, and I know it's more complicated than just saying like dribbling good or dribbling bad. There's where you're doing it. Is it a 1v2? Is it a 1v1? Is it a 1v1 against a great defender? Is it a 1v1 against a bad defender? Like, there's a lot of things that go into it. But in general, dribbling is a very important skill in the game, and you need to be able to do it no matter what position you play. And you need to know when to do it. And some people excel in it, and some cultures, as we've talked about with Argentina specifically, it's celebrated in a different way. And I get incredibly frustrated. And this is not new here. This is honestly old. I get incredibly frustrated when I'm around a youth club or little kids playing, and you hear parents and or coaches saying, don't dribble, pass, don't dribble, pass, or even worse, hoof it, boot it, clear it, kick it, that kind of stuff. dribbling should never be discouraged from kids, first off, because it is one of the skills that can separate you from the rest of the pack. It's a very important skill. The ability to know when to use it is also very important. And in general, I don't think that's an issue with Atlanta United. Are there times where it's riskier? Yeah, absolutely. You do it in the middle third, it's riskier than the attacking third. You do it in the defensive third, it's riskier than anywhere else, depending on the situation. I think George Campbell, for example, Miles Robinson are two guys who use it to great advantage and great effect as defenders. So there's never a black and white about it. And I don't know why it's like that. But yeah, it does get weird when it is celebrated from one player in one club and then bad from another player in another club. And I don't understand it. I never will. And it makes no sense to me. Like, dribbling has not been the issue for Atlanta United, and there was no difference in the dribbling this weekend. It wasn't done in different. So there was honestly a couple times that it was riskier to me, or at least it felt that way, than it had in some previous games. I think Araujo tried to go 1v2 at one point at midfield. Yeah, I mean, I trust him on the dribble because he wins a lot of those, but it was riskier. That was what he decided to do. And you'll talk through it and you'll figure it out. Did he have another option? Maybe he didn't. Maybe that was the only way. It's not black or white. But the idea that dribbling's a bad thing anytime is, to me, incredibly false. And I do not understand why people discourage it.
Thomas asks, is Thiago Almada still at 100% dribble success rate for the season?
That's a good question. Let me see if it's updated. I do not know off the top of my head. Let's see. I think he might be. I think he won his dribbles on this one. Let me look. Where am I? Possession, FB ref. He is not. Actually, he was 7. He's 7 of 13 according to Football Ref, so it wasn't even close. At least according to Football Reference. Luis Araujo is. He's 6 of 6. Mateus Osechi's 9 of 11. And Gutman's 12 of 19. Gutman's second in attempted dribbles behind Moreno.
North of 60%. It's between like 60 and 65%.
Yes.
You mentioned choosing violence. Former intern host Niall says that Pep Guardiola.
Niall's very upset about life these days after Liverpool on the weekend. Sorry.
Yeah,
Niall.
he says that Pep Guardiola also certainly chose violence and made a ridiculous claim about Liverpool.
Oh, I'm not surprised the Liverpool person would say that. Plucky upstarts and such, right? Pep also knows what he's doing, and Pep is playing the game as sometimes managers will play the game, and I would hope that you know that because Jurgen Klopp likes to play the game.
Managers play games?
Yes, John, managers play games, but Jurgen Klopp especially likes to use the media to make points. So let's not play the, oh no, Pep said things. Pep knows what he's doing. It was designed to get effect from people, just like Klopp does the same thing, and it's funny. I think it's funny. Is everybody in the country supporting Liverpool more than Manchester City? No. But are more people hoping Liverpool win than Manchester City? Yes. I don't think that's an outlandish statement in England. When you have people still trying to take shots at Pep, like, oh, he doesn't play with a number 9. If he had a number 9, he'd win everything. Oh, he can't win in the Champions League. Yeah. There's probably more support for Liverpool. Not everybody. But Pep's also rallying his troops as well. He knows what he's doing. He's making messages through the media. So, and Jurgen Klopp will do the same thing, and he already has. So have fun with it. Don't get too hurt. Don't get too hurt about it, Niall, because Tottenham came in and old Jurgie, old Jurgie. Antonio Conte played defensively.
That's not my style.
How could he do such a thing? He said, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong person for that. I don't like this kind of football, but that's my personal problem. I think they're world class, and I think they should do more for the game.
Give you a win.
I didn't know, Jared. I didn't know that we were allowed to say that when teams play defensive, it's bad, because I think when I've said that sort of thing, I've been yelled at.
It's not just here; it's other places in this league specifically that I can point to of people getting really in their feelings, not just in Atlanta, but when other teams go into fortresses and bunker. Like, you want to bet people aren't going to start going in and thinking twice about when they go to Stade Saputo, especially after Montreal dropped a 4 spot that. Man, in the words of Jim McElwain, and it probably should have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but Klopp was very upset about.
I know he
they
was.
had 36.
He knows what
he
knows what he's doing. It's all good.
They block. Yeah, exactly. He knows what he's doing, but we can't play the Pep said mean things, and Klopp then basically said Antonio Conte is playing bad football. They were defensive and they bunkered at Anfield. Shocker.
Dude,
and it's Antonio Conte.
Too, man.
Shocker.
I'm not coming. I'm not going to a gunfight at Anfield with a knife.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Shocker. I mean, crazy. Wow. I'm blown away. Anybody surprised? No. I mean, come on. They're both playing the media game, and that's what they're going to do. And now Manchester City has their hands on the trophy, but they got to see it out because Liverpool couldn't beat Tottenham's bunker. And Pep Guardiola might have sent a nice bottle of wine to Antonio Conte. Welcome to football.
And Modiflow is asking if we can touch on Manchester United before we go.
Do we have to?
The hell would we want to end our day like that?
Yeah, seriously. They are a mess, and they shouldn't have brought in Ralph Rangnick to be the interim. And I remember being very vocal about that. They also have nothing to play for right now, and the substitute teacher is going to be replaced at the end of the year, so nobody cares what he's got to say. And he never did anything to affect the way that this team played. And now he's throwing shots all over the place, it seems like, on his way out the door. But he might not be out the door, but he might be in like a broom closet as a consultant, but he might not, because he's going to be coaching the Austrian national team, because that's what you hired at Manchester United. Good job. Good on you.
Get them multiple paychecks.
And would you rather talk about something happier after this?
No, we'll talk about it. We're not going to end on this. The happy thing is Moises Caicedo gets a goal.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, man.
He's playing very well. And look, and I know Modiflow's in his feelings about Caicedo should have been playing sooner. And yeah, it's the Phil Foden argument to a degree too. Like, could he have? Yeah, I think so. I think there is generally an issue with not trusting South American players enough to come into the pen and be able to handle it. I think that's an issue, but it's hard to say that he got it wrong when it's working so well. Maybe he needed more time. You know, it was the same thing that happened with Foden. It's like, oh, he's got to play more. He's got to play more. Like, I'm bringing him along slowly. He's got to play more. He's bringing him along slowly. And he's developed really, really nicely. Sometimes the patience is what's needed. Sometimes you could have maybe sped it up a little bit. I think in general here, it's fine. And Brighton should sell Basuma, bring in that money, and Caicedo should be starting 30-plus games next year and be a beast because he's a great player. And probably could have been on the field a little bit sooner, but I don't think it's a big deal that he wasn't. I mean, it hasn't affected Brighton's position in the table, really, in my opinion. And ultimately, he's firing on all cylinders now, so it's working.
And Modiflow's adding, in all caps, by the way, that Phil Foden is a South American player confirmed.
He is.
From here, your own selves.
No, Phil Foden is the least English player of all time. Mm-hmm. Paul Gascoigne would like to have.
Ironically, with the most English name of all time, because Phil Foden sounds like a guy who got arrested at a game for like basically fighting someone from Millwall.
It's pretty English, but he's not very English in the way he plays.
No, he's not.
Reports out of all over the place, but latest out of Colombia have James Rodriguez not happy in Qatar and wanting to go.
Who could have predicted
elsewhere?
That?
Exactly. Yeah, no, crazy. Al Rayyan, big time. Wanting to go elsewhere. Reportedly, West Ham, Aston Villa, Atletico Madrid are interested, but also Inter Miami is interested. Man, we talked about Miami signing James Rodriguez like back when they announced they were going to be Inter Miami. because it makes sense. It would have been harder then because he was on the fringes of clubs and or playing in places at that time. You'd have to go back and really start to look. I think it was when I was saying it initially, it was when he was kind of in the limbo of coming back from Bayern and Real Madrid didn't really want him, and Everton hadn't popped up yet, is when I was like, yeah, they should be beating down the door. But he might end up in Miami anyway. Who knows? We'll see.
It'd be very funny.
Oh, I'll laugh. I'll laugh very, very much. I'll thoroughly enjoy it. We'll get into lots of other things on soccer over there tonight, including the latest on Erling Haaland, which could be happening anytime now that Manchester City reportedly will make their presence known in the Erling Haaland sweepstakes and get it done. Lots of other rumors about players moving. Kylian Mbappe might not let us know until the second half of June where he's going to end up. Calvin Ramsey to Liverpool is being talked about again in serious ways. Paul Pogba was linked to Manchester City at one point, which would have been bonkers. Looks like he's going to go elsewhere. We'll get into the latest in Germany. We'll get into the latest in Italy. Milan made Nick Alifi sweat quite a bit, but they got it done. Yes. We'll talk about
Milan's just trying to make Nick miserable in principle.
Pretty much. We'll talk about the Madrid derby. We'll talk about everything out of England. We'll probably talk about Scotland. We'll talk about Brazil. We'll talk about Argentina. We have the Copa de la Liga quarterfinals that start tomorrow, except Defensa is saying they're not playing tomorrow if they try to make them play tomorrow because they did just play yesterday. So that would be kind of stupid.
Yes.
Playing on Tuesday is nonsense, according to Sebastian Becasese. We'll talk about the repechaje in Mexico. Tons of stuff on soccer over there tonight. And we'll try to make sense of the Twitch pitch breaking away and decentralizing their picks, which really is not fair by any stretch because they don't get like 10 betting slips to try to beat the rest of us.
No,
that's not how it should work. So we'll have to figure this out tonight. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Another couple of things before we go.
Yes.
Opening weekend of NPSL here in the Southeast was last weekend.
Yes.
And North Alabama out of the blocks beat Apotheos at Apotheos. Appalachian FC doubled the Revs at McDonough 4-2. Atletico Lanier got the win at home against Georgia Storm 1-0. And then everything lines back up again next Saturday.
Surprising results, I think, based off kind of last year's form. So I think it's going to be a really competitive division and topsy-turvy for sure.
Also, Rich Ransom, have we discussed Detroit City supporters fighting against the tyranny that is USSF? I do not have information on this. And
they pretty much do that on a regular basis. That's the stance that the Detroit City supporters like to take on a regular basis, is fighting the world. I believe this time it is about expletives on shirts, and they have been asked not to have the expletives on shirts on TV, and they're not happy about being asked not to have expletive on shirts, and they turned it into a whole nother statement and threw Ponzi scheme around in the statement, which I don't think has anything to do with expletives on shirts. What they've created there is very, very cool in Detroit. The supporters have done amazing work, and the club has done amazing work. I don't think it's all that much to ask about the expletives on shirts. I don't think it is tyranny or anything else. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. I think there's other things to argue about and fight about. I don't think that's as big of a deal. I'm probably just missing it. But I thought the statement was way above and beyond the conversation about the shirts. And MLS had nothing to do with the shirts, but there's a little bit of a black helicopter theory underneath the surface in these situations of MLS runs U.S. soccer, which is what people allege, which isn't true. Or then USL does it, but they don't either. And MLS and USL are in cahoots, and they're not, because USL just kicked MLS teams out of their league in the process of this. So no, there's a lot of black helicopter theories that just honestly aren't that true. And I think maybe sometimes are used to explain some incompetence and some mistakes, but it's not a black helicopter. There's not. MLS has nothing to do with U.S. soccer in their competition asking for supporters not to have shirts in, I guess, the front rows that would be on camera the most with expletives on them. I don't think that has anything to do with anything else. Like it's a request, and if they don't want to do it, then I don't know what the punishment can be for the club. But ultimately, yeah, the club can get punished, and you have to make a decision ultimately. And this is something that at times gets a little bent out of shape in different places. Is having an expletive on the T-shirt for the supporters more important than the club getting punished for whatever could happen if that is the case? I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're saying they're going to, I guess, make a big statement at the game. We'll see what happens, but it doesn't feel like it lines up. If there's more to it, and I'm sure there is because there always is, then I guess, but the statement was really, really over the top for that. So I don't know. I don't always get it with that, but Detroit City's part of USL Championship right now because they were in a league that is failing, and I think it's hard to describe NISA as anything other than that at this point. And they came out of a league in the NPSL that wasn't year-round, and they needed to be year-round because the business had grown past being in a summer league, and that's a good thing. And the best league for them to be in was USL, and they did that. And I think somewhere along the line, maybe there was the impression that USL would be dramatically different than MLS in the way that it is or the way that it's run or whatever. And they're professional leagues. They have a different structure in terms of single entity and in terms of franchises, but they're professional leagues and they have professional standards. And it isn't a summer league where the standards are low. It isn't the Wild Wild West. There are national sponsors to answer to. There are national broadcasters to answer to. There are things that you have to do differently when you move up levels. This is life. This is just life. If you're an indie band and you're playing like tiny little places, you can do what you want. But if you're going to play in an arena, you're going to have some different standards you have to hit. You probably have a curfew, for example. If you're playing at a house party, you can play as long as you want. Doesn't matter. There's things that happen as you move further up and make more money and become a bigger business that impact the ability to do things. You can't just do what you want at all times. And it's not a conspiracy either. It's just life. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But there's also responses to Detroit City's response or the fans' response that are over the top too about, because Detroit City fans have argued with fans everywhere, all over the place, and then other fans get salty and they come back at it, and it's a bunch of yap on bird apps and Reddits and whatever else they're yelling at, and ultimately it's about the game. It's not about the shirts in the stands or the black helicopter theories. It's about the game. And will Detroit City advance in the Open Cup? That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm waiting to see.
Two other things before we go. They're fairly light. One was from Four Card wondering if there is a washed-up player Inter Miami is not interested in.
I'm sure there's one. They might have been interested in Scott Brown, Jarrett, but he announced his retirement from playing.
I mean, at least Scott Brown on loan. Scott Brown put in a good shift in life.
He did.
If he wasn't at LA, Miami would have been interested in Costa, who hasn't really done much in LA because he's old.
Yeah, he's past it. I'm sure they'll find somebody else that we don't know about that they're interested in.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then the last question comes from Modaflow. He says, and it's a programming question. He wants to know if we can have a Learning Italian with Nick segment in Soccer Over There.
It's going to be probably Italian you don't repeat in Sunday school, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to be allowed. Can't put it on a shirt for sure. That'll get you in trouble. So,
well, in Detroit it will. I don't know about other places.
Well, no, everywhere. It's not just a Detroit thing. They're not picking on Detroit. Jared. Don't even start that theory because I'm sure that's already been run with. I think they're just generally not wanting expletives on shirts, even if they're in Italian. So we might have to figure that out. But I don't know if Nick is an Italian teacher exactly. He could probably teach us a few things that we maybe shouldn't know in Italian, or maybe we should know. I don't know. I gotta think about that. Yeah, I don't know how that'll fit into the soccer over there conversation, but we'll see what we can come up with. I think where that actually happens, Modaflow, is where Nick is teaching John how to cook, and then probably has to say some things in Italian that then he has to explain.
We figured out who Miami would go after next.
Who is it?
Nicholas Bentner.
I think Bentner might be on. He might have an ankle bracelet at this point. He can't drive. We know that much.
He'll be fine in Miami then. I don't see the problem here.
That's true.
You go after Cardi. Get Wanda and Morrow in Miami.
Well, that's the one. That's the one. But I think they'll
just start wondering why Higuain, who is just a grumpy old man at this point, is.
Higuain's out the door at the end of the year. He's gone.
Oh yeah, but he's just gonna start wailing away on a Cardi just on principle in practice, just 2-footing the man in practice.
He's gone. He is out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see. So God, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about any of this stuff anymore. We'll see what happens.
We're officially caught up, sir.
I'm sure we're not, but I'll take it for that. Because we got a show tonight. So 7:05 soccer over there. We will get into picks of the week. We'll get into all of our league updates, and we will look at the promotion side of things as well from the lower division. We'll
get y'all some Lionel Messi in your life.
Yes. Jarrett's. Which one was that? That was Inverness.
Inverness Caledonian Thistle beat Partick Thistle in the 3-4 playoff for promotion to the Scottish First Division. Inverness Caledonian Thistle's mascot. First of all, Inverness is right near Loch Ness. Like the stadium's not on the loch because the loch is south of the stadium, but their mascot is a Nessie and its name is Lionel Messi. It's fantastic.
That is amazing.
Also, Wolves loanee Austin Samuels, who started the season at Aberdeen and didn't stick, went to Inverness and scored 2 goals in 180 minutes to push them past Partick Thistle.
Not bad.
So there's your England connection.
We'll talk about Scotland. We'll talk about England. We'll talk about Germany. We'll talk about Italy. We'll talk about Spain. We'll talk about France. We'll talk about Brazil. We'll talk about Argentina. We'll talk about Mexico. We got a lot to cover. Soccer over there, 7:05. Until then, much platiel.
Much platiel.
Much platiel.